Hi, my name is Brooke Rodriguez. I'm a Taino mother living in Matinacock territory.
Rejuxis. My name is Desiree Kane. I'm a Miwok Two-Spirit.
OCO, my name is Mia Beverly. I am from Sandhill Band of Cherokee and Lenape, and welcome to First Foods,
a program made by and for Indigenous people and our allies
who are ready for a new day for old ways. First Foods program is produced by Grinding Stone Collective in partnership with Green Feather Foundation and Her Many Voices Foundation,
along with important support from community members like you.
We have some protocols we'd like to go over with you.
Land acknowledgement. We recognize, uphold, and respect Native nations and their lifeways above all else as the ruling governance of Turtle Island and Abya Yala. Everyone attending this space must uphold the same.
Native knowledge. Lessons learned are not for non-natives to monetize on or repackage as their own. Native knowledge systems belong to the cultural communities they come from and to the guest teachers in our programming.
Foraging and harvesting. Always seek permission from tribal communities to forage and harvest. These medicines or foods may be seasonal or being left to replenish themselves. Also respect if the answer is no.
Intertribal space. We are all from different nations and regions, so what may be odd or undesirable as food to you might be good to someone else. Respect that and don't insult or belittle. Respect tribal food, land, and medicine sovereignty. Remember that majority of foods are shared by many different tribes, but with different names. Do not try to claim exclusivity or copyright for your own people. It's okay to share the name as you know it. It is not okay to create dissent over a different name. No dissent over blood quantum or otherwise more Indianer than you fighting.
Food sovereignty. First people have the rights to hunt, fish, forage, and harvest in their traditional territories. It is unacceptable to critique traditional or contemporary dietary styles as a non-native. Please put any questions that you have in the chat.
The last 30 minutes of class, we often invite attendees to come on and interact with our instructors. Disclaimer: First Foods is for educational purposes only. Before using or ingesting any herb or plant for medicinal or culinary purposes, please consult a physician, medical herbalist, or suitable professional.
Juxus. Welcome back to another wonderful class and week together here on First Foods. As you saw in the video, my name is Desiree Kane, and we have a wonderful class for you today, a really unique one. It is called Matriarch, Mothering Maiz, Birthing Seeds with Sewa Yuli Portela. She's Yaqui and Purepecha, and she's going to be doing a step-by-step instructions demo in addition to teaching her course today. So if you have any questions, please put them in the Zoom chat. We do have a format where 1/3 of class, the last half hour, is Q&A. So if you have those questions, please feel free to bring them up. We love to hear from you. And also encourage your friends to come to class. We've got a whole year ahead of us still of Indigenous-led programming and just exceptional teachers like the one you're going to see today. So I will hand it on over to our lovely co-host, Mia Beverly, for introductions of Sewa.
Thanks, Desiree. Hey, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Mia, and just to introduce you to mothering Maiz, birthing seeds. Sewa Yuli, they go by they, them, is a queer, full-spectrum birthkeeper, bodyworker, community cook, and parent. Rooted in Mexican curanderismo, hope I pronounced that right, traditional Mexican postpartum care, and food justice advocacy. Sewa is the founder of Mi Xantico. In addition to the aforementioned services, they provide one-on-one meal prep services, postpartum nutritional support, catering, cooking classes, and more. Centered around ancestral foods, Sewa utilizes culinary medicine to promote healing, connection to tradition, and health autonomy in all their practices. Cultivating ancestral practices through our sacred seeds and home fires, activating cellular memory, and nourishing our community through traditional foodways. That's all for the introduction, and Sewa, you can take it away.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. I'm Sewa Yuli. My family comes from Michoacán in Sonora, Mexico. I'm currently residing in Kumi Islands, aka San Diego. This is my sister here, Ariana, and Atlanesi, and Baby Yoda. And my partner here, Andrew, and they're going to be joining me today. You already introduced a lot of the work that I do, so I'll go ahead and save time, but I'm really, really excited here to be sharing a little bit of what I do. You know, I don't really have, I'm kind of going to freestyle it, and I want to go straight into the demo right away and then come back and sit here for story and share a little bit of the instruments that we have here today. I also wanted to share that I just currently enrolled into midwifery school, so I'm like officially, you know, in those ways, student midwife, and I'm currently pursuing my path into midwifery, but all the work that I do is centered around food, indigenous foods. And so I want to acknowledge my grandma, my mother, and all my ancestors that are here with me today to share this precious knowledge. And I hope that, you know, people have questions. I'm more happy to answer anything as we go along, and things that come through to me, because I don't have a actual anything written down as we're going to speak. I'm like letting spirit kind of guide me and into the things that I want to share. Corn is such a precious, not just a sustenance, but it's a precious spiritual sustenance that has like helped me a lot on all the work that I do, and has brought a lot of knowledge, like the spiritual downloads through that sacred corn. And so if there's anything that comes up, and when, even if you want to share something, a story, I really encourage people to share. And so it's not just questions, and also I want to hear other people's stories, there any correlations, anything that I share as well. And I invited my sis here because she's not only she has a baby and postpartum, and she has her own stories that are relatable to what we're going to be speaking about today. And I'll let her, when that time comes, to share her story. But I want to go straight into the action and go into the atole demonstration. For some of you that don't know what atole is, atole translates to liquid corn in Nahuatl. And it is something that in different regions of Mexico, we prepare it a little bit different, but it's like the same. Or some people call it champurrado, or there's other ways of preparing it as well. But before the tamal, before the pozole, some of you might know these foods. There was atole, and atole was one of the first foods that was dated back, as far as we know, that how we sustained ourselves. And so I'm going to go a little bit over of how kind of some of those teachings that came back, you know, from my relatives, and how we prepared it and what it meant. But I'm going to go straight into the kitchen. My partner is going to help me, so bear with me as we navigate through this, taking my laptop into the kitchen. So we're going to go ahead and move to the kitchen, and I'm going to dive right into the demonstration, and then we'll come back here, and then I'll share a little bit more around all the tools that we have, and then some more stories. There we go. And you guys get to see my house too, so. All right, here we go. Okay, maybe I could hold it a little bit here too. That'll help. So here I have all the lists, or I mean, all the ingredients that we're going to be using today. I think Brooke, if you're interested in the recipe, the list of ingredients, I sent it to her so she could email it out. The first ingredient, of course, is our cornmeal. We're using blue cornmeal. This is Southern Ute blue corn, and I have about 2 cups in here. The recipe calls for 1 cup, but I'm going to make double because I'm actually making some to take to my community this evening. So I'm making like the double amount that is called in that recipe that is going to be sent. So I have 2 cups of blue cornmeal. I have about 2 cups of water here. And then I'm going to use 2 quarts of almond milk. You can use oat milk, you could use dairy, like cow milk, whatever milk that you like, or you could just use water. I like to use almond milk because it's kind of neutral. And then I sweeten it with piloncillo, which is like a brown, like smoked sugar from Mexico. You could use stevia, you could use honey, maple syrup is really, really good too, or you can use agave. I don't usually use ground cinnamon, but if you don't have cinnamon sticks, you could use the ground cinnamon. So I have 3 cinnamon sticks here, and then I have my molinillo. And so if you don't have one of these, you can use a whisk. I like using the molinillo because it's made of wood, and I feel, it feels better than plastic or metal. But if you don't have this, it's okay. You can use your whisk. But you can find these at any local, like Latin American supermarkets. We also use it to make our chocolate. Today, I'm going to make it very simple. There's different ways of making atole. You could use fruits. You could use cacao. A lot of people use cacao. Today, I'm just going to make the very simple version. And then as we go, then I'll explain the different types of ways that you could sweeten it or add like different fruits. Sometimes you can use pineapple. You can use banana or nuts. And so the first step, I have a clay pot. I prefer to use clay pot. It tastes better, it cooks better, and it's our traditional way. If not, a stainless steel is okay. I try to stay away from Teflon, but if you just use whatever you got. If you don't have any of these things, it's okay to just use whatever's in your kitchen. So we're going to use a clay pot, and I'm going to go ahead and put this right here on the stove. And then the first step is to use, I'm going to put the water in here. And so what I'm going to make is like a cinnamon tea. I'm going to add 3 cinnamon sticks in here. Okay, we're going to put about medium heat. So because of timing, usually I like to make the tea and let it kind of brew and get it very concentrated because I love cinnamon, and cinnamon is very warming. So this is something that I prepare a lot for my postpartum clients. So I make the tea and I let it get concentrate. Today we're gonna kind of like fast forward and skip that, like, because what I do is like I make the tea, I let it cool, and then I add the milk, because you don't want to add your cornmeal when it's really hot, because what happens, it gets really clumpy. And so I'm going to go ahead and add the milk now. And if you have questions while I'm doing this, you can, I'm more than happy to answer anything if I'm going a little too fast. And then I'm going to add 4 piloncillos. These are the small ones. Sometimes you might catch these like a lot bigger. I like them small because it's kind of hard to break sometimes. So I'm going to go ahead and add the piloncillo in there. There's 4. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my cornmeal. These are 2 cups of toasted cornmeal. You start mixing right away. Yeah, it's so good, oh mamas. She knows, she's very familiar with this. So we mix it right away just so, you know, we could avoid any clumps. Okay, and so the next step is to add some wood ash. I think this is juniper ash right here. And the reason why we add the ash, because the ash is what helps break down the pericarb. It brings out the nutrients in the corn and it helps break down the husk. When we do pozole, we nixtamalize the corn. We do a kind of a different process. In Mexico, we use calcium hydroxide, also known as cal. And so what the cal does, we soak the actual corn, the kernels, we boil it for about an hour. And then when you boil it, you turn it off, you cover it, you leave it overnight, and the next day you rinse it. And so all the pericarp, all the little film around the kernel comes off. And then also, and that's what happens, the science behind it, right? It like brings out all the nutrients. And so I know that there's different kinds of wood ashes that people use that bring out different types of nutrients in the corn, but this is a very important process to add the ash, or when you do it, the original way of before we started doing this way was through the nixtamalized corn kernels, like how they make pozole. And so the way that happens, once you cover your corn, you boil it and you rinse it, they would make a masa with it, and then they would add water, and then they use that liquid masa water to make the atole. That was the original way. And then now people make this because it's a little bit easier, because not everybody has like the time, or sometimes not everybody, you know, it's a kind of a big process to nixtamalize your corn. But if you do, like, it's really fun. It's a good way to connect with your corn. And so today we're gonna add just a little bit of so I added about a like half a tablespoon of ash into this water here, and I mixed it. And then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna strain it so it doesn't get any like chunks in there. And so let's go ahead and do that part. And so you see here, you'll see like some of the residue that it leaves behind. So we take that out, and then we get to the fun part. And this is the part where it's super, super important. And you want to make sure that it's not too high. It's kind of at a medium heat. To stay with your atole. Like, it's so easy to burn it. It's so easy. If you step away, like, a lot of things can happen. So I think this is a really beautiful part, is that for myself, I get to connect with the corn. I get to sing songs, to set intentions and prayers to the people that are going to be receiving this corn drink. And in Mexico, you know, this is a drink that you give to postpartum, you know, families, you know, and not only that, but during the winter, if someone's not feeling good, like, oh, nanatole, you know. And so I grew up with both of my grandmas. One of them's from Michoacan and the one's from Sonora, so from North Mexico and South Mexico, and they make it a little bit different, you know. And my grandma from my nana in Mexico, northern Mexico, uses mesquite flour in her atole, and it's a little bit more bitter. And my grandma from South Mexico would make it with corn and with oats. So I grew up with atole. So it's such a like beautiful and heartwarming drink. And to me, like, what it represents is like that embrace of a grandma, an abuelita. Like, it's so warm, you drink it, and it's like, so good. It's sweet, and then the cinnamon. And so when I'm here with my atole, because it usually takes about 20 to 25 minutes, so it's like allowing me to be present, allowing me to connect with my corn, to set intentions, and yeah, and it's like it's a really good time to just kind of, you know, like, I don't know, it's like a meditation. Does anybody have questions? Or anything, Brooke, or anybody familiar with this drink at all? Anybody that's on the call?
I am not, but I'm dying to try it. And if it's okay, I will share the recipe that you developed again for the class so they could see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just a second. I'm really curious about the ash because the ash seems like it must give it such a wonderful and unique flavor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. It does. It's you have to really, once you kind of get used to that taste, it does add a different element to it. Some people can't find, like, they won't taste it, they won't acknowledge, like, hey, is there something ash in here? But I could taste it, it's just a little woody, I guess you could say.
And you're using amaranth flour.
Yeah, and for the recipe that's on here, this is I'm not using that recipe. So if you don't have amaranth flour, it's the same recipe without the amaranth, And so if the atole is too thick, you could just add more liquid. So you could make it to your liking, however you prefer. Some people like it a little bit more mushy. And I know that when people make blue corn mush, it's maybe a little similar. I didn't grow up with blue corn mush. It's just something that was shared with me with some of my relatives. But this is how we prepare the atole. And sometimes when you leave it out for a long time, it'll turn into mush. And it's cool because what I do is I put it in my fridge and it gets a little bit more like coagulated, I guess. And then I add berries and I eat it for breakfast. But if you want it to be drinkable, you just add more liquid. You just add water or milk and stir it again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Does this have any benefits to it beyond being a comfort food, like maybe calming your stomach or lowering blood pressure?
I don't know if it's lowering blood pressure, but it is like this. I mean, all the nutrients and like the benefits from cinnamon, all the warming stuff. Like, so during the postpartum, we want to make sure that the birthing parent has warming foods. For us, we have a 40-day postpartum period, which we call the cuarentena. And during that time, we avoid any cold foods. And so anything with cinnamon, cardamom, like warming teas, and the corn has, it has its, like, its nutrients. But I think the benefit from it is, like, also for me, one of the most important parts, which I'll go more into detail, is like the spiritual aspect of it, because corn is the foundation of our people, and it's the foundation. It's like who we are, where we come from, and how it defines a lot of like our cosmology, and also like our way of life, and how we are in synchronicity with nature. And so those are the stories that were told to us. So for me, when I'm sharing this cornmeal, it's like, yes, it's warming, delicious, and nutritional, but it's also, it's like more, it's deeper, it's kind of like helping us remember who we are and where we come from. And it's always an opportunity to share with these parents, these stories, because some people don't have access, some people there's that disconnect. So when I share these stories and this cup of atole with a parent, a mom, it allows, like, for them to, like, oh, I remember this, or maybe they didn't know, and then they go search, or they ask their moms or their grandmas. And so it's an opportunity for them to reconnect and like establish those relationships again to these traditional foods.
Mm-hmm. We have a comment from Malia who says, for us as Hawaiians, taro is the same for us. It is our elder brother.
Yes. Oh yeah. I've been to the islands before, and I remember some of my good sisters out there sharing about the stories about I'm actually wearing this. I don't know. This ulu baby. Yeah, it's an ulu baby. This is their creation story. So awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it brings really good memories. We share a lot of really similar ways of life, and with our relatives out there in the islands in Hawaii. So we're gonna go ahead and, I'm gonna give this to my partner so he could finish. But this is gonna take about 20 minutes or so at this point. And so what we're just waiting for, it's just getting thicker. So right now it's still a little bit, it's not quite cooked. And it's gonna get nice and thick. And if it gets a little too thick, and I just always add a little bit more water. So I always encourage people to experiment. I know I didn't learn from like measuring anything, so it took me a while to get all the measurements. My grandma and my mom, they're all amazing cooks, and the way that they taught me was like by intuition, like, oh, we have this saying in Spanish, it's nomás tantéale, ponle ahí, and so it's like measuring with your hand, you'll know, like, so they encourage us to trust, our intuition, and to also like, you're gonna maybe add too much or too little, and then that's how you build those relationships with those herbs or those spices, and you get to become more like connected to the food that you're making. Okay,
So how do you relate making this dish to nourishing the Native community through keeping traditional foodways alive?
Okay, one more time.
How do you relate this to nourishing the community through keeping traditional foodways alive?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's like that's really what it's all about for me, because I think I shared a little bit of that with what I just shared about the atole and my clients. Like to me, that's really like my activism, is really like sharing food, because I don't just prepare atole, I prepare other foods, and each food has its story, and it comes from a certain region. And like I said earlier, not everybody has those connections, right? Not everybody is, some people are been here in the States, and they're like third generation, at least here in this region, where there's a lot of people who identify as Chicanos, and like, oh, it's kind of gotten lost. So what we're doing, me and my sis here, we're using traditional food ways to, have people reconnect and build those relationships to land, to respect and honor the land. And it's been really cool because we get to see it happen. We get to see people who, bring their kids, and then their kids have questions, and they want to know about how we farm and grow our corn, and then we share our corn stories. And I think that's really like an important piece, to get planting those seeds within people, to have that pride, of like, wow, like we're so rich in culture. And it's not just like the culture, it's like there's so much significance. So there's a lot of cosmology and how it all connects us, because I know a lot of people right now, they're trying to find something to connect with, to identify like identity, and so I think it's all in our seeds, in our food. Sometimes a lot of us don't have our language anymore. And so I think really the point for me, it's like really all in the seeds here. And the seeds, like, it does something when we eat it. It helps us remember. I was sharing something about like that activating our blood memory, helping us remember, even if it's just one dish at a time.
Thank you for that. I actually have a question too, and it's more pertaining to the recipe. But you mentioned that your family kind of adjust it like based off of their own preferences. So I'm like wondering, like maybe how often do you change up your recipe for the atole? Or do you have any like special extra ingredients that you like to throw in there?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I actually change it up all the time. My atole comes out different every time. And that's something that I didn't share, is that my grandma would tell me, make sure that when you're stirring your atole, like you have good thoughts. Like, don't do it mad. And it's happened to me before, that where I'm just like, oh, and there's something, or I'm processing, or I'm not feeling good, and I burn it. And it's real. I used to just think my grandma's just saying this. But I make it every time. If I have like extra bananas, or if I have cacao, or I have pineapple, guava, whatever's in season, I try to use seasonal foods. and whatever is growing. I have a fellow midwife who has a guava tree. And so all this winter, her and her husband gave me a ton of guavas. And so what I do is I extract the pulp or the juice of any of the fruits that I'm using. I have a Vitamix, and then I strain it to, sometimes there's seeds or stuff. And then I use that pulp or the juice and I add it into the atole. And so that adds like the fruit or the tartness. There's people that make it with tamarind. I actually, I made some with taro before. I was sharing this recipe with my friends in Maui. And I was like, hey, you can make atole and add, all your, traditional foods and just like mix it, but yeah, I mix it up, and sometimes I don't have honey and I'll use, the piloncillo, or I'll use maple syrup. And yeah, my style is very like intuitive style cooking or whatever is around, and it always works out.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. Yeah.
And I want to give my friend Ariana, my sis here, an opportunity to share her experience with this drink as a postpartum and mom, and also like her experience and having it around during birth or prenatal, like, and what it meant for her, because a lot of our community here, like, it's like such a big thing, like we all like to share corn, and it's like a really beautiful way of sharing our love and our affection towards each other. So yeah, if you want to share, Ariana. And
she just
it's okay.
Hi. So let me see. As Sewa was making this atole, I've just been thinking of my pregnancy. This is Atanesi. She just turned about 4 months. So I'm 4 months postpartum now. But I was thinking of all the amazing atole I got to have and the different variations during my pregnancy, as she was a January baby. So I would say that traditionally atole, we kind of drink it more in the cold season, in the winter time. And let me backtrack a little bit before I going into the postpartum. I know she introduced me, Ariana, and I just wanted to mention where my family's from as well. On my paternal side, my family's Cochimí from Baja California, that we're very close to here in Southern California. And from my end, de Michoacán también, I have family on my paternal side. And then my maternal side, son Mayo Yoreme de Sinaloa. And I was thinking, right now that we're here in Southern California and Kumeyaay territory, of just to want to share a little bit of their stories of corn, since they're not told very often. And there's only about 20 native speakers of Kumeyaay language left, and a lot of their elders are passing away. So I just want to honor Kumeyaay in that way of sharing what some Kumeyaay elders have shared with me on how, here where we are in San Diego by the coast, I was told that they would trade with the desert Kumeyaay their corn for things they would get from the coast, like abalone and seashells for making tools, and fish, and all the coastal stuff. They would trade for, I guess the corn grew better with the desert Kumeyaay, and honoring those trade routes, thinking of how important those trade routes are for getting this medicinal food to different tribal communities, and to revitalize those trade routes. And just the way I feel that Sewa does in honoring by getting her blue corn from where are you getting your blue corn from?
Colorado.
Mm-hmm. And having that relationship with them. And yeah, so if you can't grow your own corn for whatever reason, or you don't have access to non-GMO organic corn in your area, to think of the trade routes that you can revitalize, and how important that is for our communities. And yeah, also thinking of how important it is to grow your own corn, and thinking of my family in Ensenada right now that are probably planting a lot of corn in this season. And yeah, that's a good way to establish that relationship with corn, and the different things it can teach you in following the lunar cycles, and following and listening to the seasons, and all the different things that go into that cycle of corn, and growing it with nature, and kind of syncing your body to that cycle as well. And yeah, so with my pregnancy, because she's a winter baby, I got to drink a lot of atole during that pregnancy, as it got colder. And not just that, but also have a lot of corn in my diet, with the tamales that came during that time, and the pozoles and the tortillas, que no faltan. So a lot of corn during my pregnancy. And even if I wasn't pregnant, I'd be eating all that. But atole has something very special about it, that it feels like medicine to me. And it's just a very pure form of consuming that traditional meal. And I was sharing with Sewa, it was my first meal after having her, literally hours after she was born. And I was resting. I was blessed enough to have a healthy, safe pregnancy, home birth with her, and got to be at home. And so I was resting, and that was the first meal made for me by a dear friend of ours, Tema, who, and it was your blue corn that she had brought. And also, Sewa, can I see this really quick? So I was also gifted a blue corn by Sewa and an obsidian knife, and we cut her umbilical cord on this blue corn. And
so the umbilical cord, just to give you a visual really quick, gets placed on top of the corn. Like they say, this is the umbilical cord, and then we cut the umbilical cord with obsidian. And the reason we use obsidian is because it's a heating element. We don't use anything cold. So the metals that they use in hospitals are cold metals, and so that allows cold to go into the mom or the baby. And that's, so we try to stay away from that. So we use obsidian for the heating, and the corn is like a grounding element. And so in a ways, it's also like, when we cut it, and it's really, although the DNA stays within ourselves.
And yeah, and speaking of DNA, which was what I was going to go into, with consuming atole during my pregnancy and postpartum, for me, I felt that corn, and how much medicine it carried in it, just because I knew it was planted in a good way, it was processed in a good way. I felt like it was awakening that ancestral DNA in myself, so that I could pass down to my daughter. And then postpartum, she can continue to receive that through breast milk. And but I feel like that's what corn does. It wakes up those memories of from our ancestors and all our grandparents and great grandparents that carried that knowledge of what an important crop it was for the survival of our people. And I feel like she gets all that passed down, when we're consuming as mothers, as parents, and then throughout the rest of their lives. And Yeah,
Mhm.
I think I don't know if you wanted to go into the zine since we're both.
Oh yeah. So
But-
me and Ariana, unless there's any questions before we go into this sharing of what we created. Okay, so we created this really beautiful zine. It's called Teozintli, and Teozintli is the original corn or grain before our ancestors engineered it to become corn. And so we kind of just
It's where corn came from when it was a wild crop. It
Mhm.
wasn't domesticated yet by humans.
Yeah, so that's how my engineered is, for lack of better terms. So in the, we'll kind of go over it a little bit, but in the zine, we named some of our original foods here in Nahuatl. So some of the foods that come from Mexico that are like a staple to our just our traditional foods. It's like, this is like, maybe some of you might, it just be, it's a part of your culture as well. Like besides, I know the corn is a big one, amaranth, squash, beans, nopales, chile, and what else? And chia. So we have a couple of recipes in here, and then Ariana is an amazing artist. And then she made this beautiful centerpiece here. And this is a really good segue for me to go into this story that that kind of where it all started for me. There's a professor in I was living in Tucson, Arizona, his Dr. Sintley, and he has a really awesome book called Corn is Our Mother. And he tells a story that he got from some elders in Mexico. So he went to Mexico and studied with a lot of different elders and learning about our corn and those trade routes and different stories. So there's a lot of different creation stories. Some are just told a little bit slightly different. I'm just gonna give a kind of a short version of it. So, and forgive me in advance if something is told wrong, or I'm just kind of going the way that, I was told by Dr. Sintley. And so there was a time, this is, we're going back in time, in the coming of the fifth son, and Quetzalcoatl was creating humans. So he created humans, and the humans, he noticed that the humans were weak, that they were dying, and something was missing. And so Quetzalcoatl goes in search for what was missing, and it was sustenance. They needed food. So he goes into these sacred mountains, and when he goes into these sacred mountains and finds these little ants, and he sees all this little trail of ants, and they're carrying seeds. So he turns himself into a red ant, and he goes to the ants and asks them, like, he greets them and asks for some of those seeds. Can I please have some of those seeds to take to these humans? They need nourishment. And the ants were very resistant. They're like, no, these are very sacred. And Quetzalcoatl is like, yeah, but these humans they're good people. They're gonna take care of them. And the ants were, they weren't budging. They're like, no, like, we're not gonna give you these seeds. These seeds, we give them to them. We know what's gonna happen to these seeds. And somehow, some way, Quetzalcoatl, got his way to get some of these seeds. And one of the ants was like, okay, we're going to give you these seeds, but when you give you these seeds, you have to make sure that these humans make these sacred pacts with these seeds. And when these humans receive these seeds, they're it's like a sacred marriage, and their DNA gets embedded into these seeds. And Quetzalcoatl goes back and gives the people the seeds, and soon enough they start growing the corn, growing the squash, because they give them different types of seeds, and they start growing all these crops. And so what happened was that the seed taught the humans how to connect with with nature, how to work with the seasons, how to be humble human beings. and connect with the waters and the importance of the waters and the land and the moon and the cycles, and how to be in synchronicity with, or in symbiosis with nature. And so, I love this story because, this story, we all get to kind of interpret it in whatever ways that we want. And for me, I got to see it like, wow, like when it really, like I soaked it in and was thinking about this story and these ants, and I was like geeking out, because at the same time when I was like learning about like mycelium network, I was learning about mushrooms and how that works. I had just learned about these ants, that ants, when you see them carrying like little food, they're going in their tunnel and they're feeding a fungi, they're feeding a mushroom. And I was like super mind blown by that. And I was like, wow. And so me in my mind, I'm going so many different places, and I'm sitting with this story, of these ants and Quetzalcoatl, and how we made those sacred pacts with nature, and how they didn't want to give it to us. They're like, we know what's going to happen. And so then I started thinking, like, fast forward, right? Like now, like we have GMO corn, and GMO corn is in everything. It's in everything. It's like almost inevitable. Sometimes if some people have, that privilege, I want to call it privilege, to avoid it and to buy all this stuff and not have it. But for most people, especially in indigenous, BIPOC communities, like, it's hard. Like, I'm probably sure that I could find something that has, corn syrup, in my fridge. And so I was thinking, like, if corn is supposed to be something that helps us remember who we are, helps, and that sacred, I'm thinking of that sacred marriage, that and those pacts that we made with it, is to help us remember who we are, where we come from, and how to be in and have this symbiotic relationship with nature. Then this corn, this like suicide corn, right? That's what I call it. This GMO corn is like, does the opposite. It's like genetically modifying us and changing our DNA and eradicating like those memories, like disconnecting us from that. And I'm like, fuck, like, it like really sunk in. I have already known that GMO was bad, but the way that like I got to interpret it was like, wow, like this is the eradication of all our ancestral knowledge. And our ancestral knowledge is what connects us to nature, what connects us to all these, all these beautiful ways of life, of being and existing in balance with nature. And, so for me, when I make my atole, when I make the pozole, or tamales, it is important to put those intentions, because I pray with my food and I talk to it, that they receive that, when that mom or that baby, that they receive that they activates their cellular memory, that helps them, even if it's that one, even if they're going to get atole just one time, it's going to help them. They're going to take that for the rest of their lives, and, I know that, I can't speak for all people, for myself, and I'm very, in my spirituality, like, I really believe that. I believe that we have the power to change something with our thoughts, with our prayer and our intentions. And so for me, that's why it's so important, even if it's just, one time giving them atole. That's my way of helping this earth. Because if we are helping people remember and who we are as the land-based people, is how we treat our earth, how we treat our water, and I wanted to just share that. And this is a beautiful, when I shared that story, Ariana put it all illustrated, like so beautiful. She's gonna be making this into a mural one day. So I'd love to, if anything came up for her, if there's any questions on that story, I'd love to, hear and interact with some of you, and not just me be talking. I'd love to interact with some of you. Atole is done? Okay, thank you. Atole is done. I wish I could give you guys all a cup.
Hi, Sewa. So we actually have some questions from the group, from Malia, about first acknowledging how beautiful the artwork is, but also is design available online? So where can actually people purchase it or link?
Yes. Okay, so in the chat, I will be putting the website up. You can find it we in Ariana's website. ArianaArroyoArt.com. Ariana. Okay, I'll write it in the chat right now. And you can find it in the website there. Ariana.
I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your stories, and I loved having the mom and the baby here as well to share stories. It was actually bringing me to tears, and it actually reminded me of, I think I actually went to go follow you on Facebook and friend you, and I see you're friends with a lot of my friends here in Hawaii that are also midwives, and so many stories that I see very similar, and I was a part of the some of their classes, and as they're working with young moms and dads and training them with our and reviving a lot of these Hawaiian ways. And especially during the birthing process, and it was really new for us to learn some of the traditional drinks that were also prepared, because that was something that was lost for us as Native Hawaiians. And it was because of a conversation with some elders from the island of Ni'ihau, where many of our native speakers still live, that this tradition was now shared and revived with a larger community. And so I was being reminded of a lot of that. I loved I loved learning a little bit more about that similarity that you guys also have, and just wanted to share my gratitude and say thank you. For myself, I've been on a health journey and trying to prepare my own what I call my internal honua, or my womb, as well as my external honua and the external environment. And if I'm blessed with a baby, because I'm turning 50 this year, I'm preparing that, and praying for that, and trying to manifest that in every way. But so I don't know, for some reason it was meant for me to be here and to hear your stories and to be inspired once again. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Mahalo. Thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I'm so happy that I'm wearing my ulu baby.
I see it. Beautiful.
Yeah. My sister Ki'i and Leilani, they're good people out there doing really good work. I got to spend some time 2 years ago for the Indigenous Birthkeepers gathering. So it was really good to share stories and go to the birthing stones in Oahu. That was really beautiful. Thank you for bringing back those good feelings from that place. Very magical. And so yeah, I'm gonna put my boo on the spot right here because I want to segue into something else. How are we on time? Just time check really quick.
We have about 30 minutes, like more like 35 minutes, but I'm gonna bring up Britt Reed because I believe they wanted to speak as well. So Britt, you have the floor.
Oh
yes. That's okay.
Oh no, yes. Go ahead, Britt.
Oh, okay. I'll make it quick. One, I miss you a lot. And two, I really loved hearing that story as well, because you know how we've talked before about like how like Choctaws and your culture have like a lot of similarities we're geeking out about building stuff. Pretty recently I heard a story also that involved like ants with us and corn, and so I just thought it was really beautiful that y'all had a story like that as well. I'll start my video.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
Yeah, I'm so used to like not having it on. But yeah, essentially it it was one of our creation stories where we were coming into a new area, and we come from the mounds, for people that don't know. And we were shown like a way to come out of it essentially. And, you know, like the first people came out of the mound and saw like how beautiful the world was, and kind of like passed the news along to everybody else down the line. And then people got really excited and started rushing it. And the ants were kind of like, what are y'all doing? You forgot your corn. And so they started like carrying the corn so that like they could bring into the world with us. And then unfortunately people got too excited, and then they started like stomping on like the elders and the babies and the ants. And so eventually what had happened was that like, you know, like the ants that came out of the hole came out of the hole in the people, but Creator was just like, we're shutting this down. Y'all are wilding out. And basically everybody else that was rushing out turned into ants. And so in that way, like the ants are also our relatives, and also made sure that we have the corn to come into the new world and to like continue that relationship. So I always love corn stories, and really appreciate stories about ants. So that's my quick millennial version of that story.
I love it. Oh, we're relatives, you know, there's no doubt about it that, you know, that's why I love that Ariana shared the importance of the trade routes and how these stories traveled, and how we traveled, how we migrate, our migration stories, and all the similarities that we have. And we're like, oh, when we say we're relatives, we really are, you know. It's like, and there's the language like even from Michoacan, my people in Purepecha, they could communicate with people in Michigan, with some of the tribes out there. And it's really, I'm like, wow, like, and a lot of the stories, right? And so I love connecting. Yeah. That makes me feel more closer to all like our northern relatives. Thank you.
And I hope, Sue, that next time that I see you, you could get some atole this time.
Oh yeah, I'm bringing it.
I missed out.
With me. I'm bringing it with me, and Ariana's coming with me.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm gonna bring you some seeds too. I got gifted some from Mexico, which like they don't grow good in the Northwest, so maybe I'll have more luck with them.
Yeah, wonderful, awesome, yay. Yeah. I wanted to share too, like just, you know, about, I have a couple of, I put my metate here. Where's the other part to the metate? The grinding stone? Is it there? This is our metate. This is our traditional way of grinding our corn. This is a mini version one, a small one. It's kind of small. This is some of the corn that I grew last year. And I don't know where this grinding stone is, but so maybe some of y'all have seen it before, this here. And so we grind it down. Usually it was on there. It's okay. I just wanted to display, kind of show it, and then also show the different ways that we grind our corn too. This is the hand mill here, and then this is some of the corn. Maybe you can see it, like, that I got to grow last year. This is what I have left, and so this is my corn that I get to use, like, for you know, for my clients, for like special occasions. I put some special prayers down when I grew this corn, with intentions of, you know, of activating that in people, and all the relatives, all the babies, all the mamas, the birthing people. Just a little bit of, you know, those thoughts and ways to reconnect them, you know, with the ways of our ancestors. And so, but I also have a relative, and my bro Carlos Baca up in Colorado, and he shared some seeds, and then I started growing it, and I just made relations with this corn. But the interesting part was, you know, the ways that these blue corn migrated, because a lot of, you know, the corn came from Mexico and it made its way up north. And so I heard that the Southern Ute people, there's, you know, I heard a story that the blue corn that they received it from the Hopi tribes. And then the Hopi, there's a story that they received the blue corn from the Southern tribes of my people, Yoeme, Yaqui people. And we have a Yoeme blue corn. So I was like, wait a minute, this might just be the same corn from my people. It just, you know, it traveled and made its way, you know, up north to Colorado, because I just feel really like I don't know, I feel very close to this corn, and I've been growing it, because some people ask me, why are you growing that Southern Ute corn? I was like, I got it, it felt good, and it grows so beautiful. I had my first try with it, and I connected with it. So I just wanted to share that. And I also wanted to, open up the space for my partner to talk a bit of what he knows, because a lot of us, I know there's different ceremonies, and I want to share a little bit our ceremonies that we have, because most of our ceremonies, corn is such a big part of our ceremony and how we use it. And a lot of our ceremonies are kind of in a reenactment of birth. We talk about our sweat lodge, sundance, teepee ways, and there's all kinds of different ways. I'll speak on behalf of the traditions that we use here. And so I wanted to I open it up and have him share a little bit about, the morning times when we share that meal and what it means, as a spiritual leader, and what he knows and what has been shared with him from different elders, and us coming from, as my counterpart, that we share these ways, and they go together. We're like learning and interweaving a lot of this knowledge, and it's all relevant. It's like really, we come back and it's like, oh, it's the same thing. We're like really reenacting, like it's a reenactment of creation, or people call it sex, or reenactment of birth. So this is my partner, Andrew. Get close over here. I know he told me not to put him on the spot, but like I had to. So if you want to share with them a little bit of, I was telling them about, if you heard me right now, about like, the ways that we use that corn in the morning time, and we use it, the ways that we do, and yeah, I'll let you share. How about that?
Good evening, good evening, everybody. My name is Andrew. And then
you tell them a little bit about yourself. Don't be shy.
And my people come from Mexico. My grandfather's family comes from Michoacan, and my grandma's family comes from Zacatecas, Mexico. I was born here in California. My father, he brought me up into a lot of different ways, starting with the sweat lodge ceremony, and then later the Native American church ceremony. So I've been kind of attending Native American church since I was about 10 years old. And then that's kind of somehow that really, that ceremony, I gravitated to that ceremony at a really young age. I kind of traveled a lot of different reservations and a lot of different, to different tribes and how they run ceremony. And then so really beautiful ceremony, so some people call it a healing ceremony. And it kind of represents, the teepee. It's a teepee ceremony, called a half moon ceremony. It kind of represents, kind of like a womb. When someone's going back into getting, we're looking for healing, and a lot of times, a lot of people were sick in the old days, and a lot of people were being forced on reservations, and then struggling with alcoholism and a lot of different other things back in the early 1900s, and then so this use of peyote came about, and then we started utilizing that to kind of help the people, heal, and then kind of it's kind of been a really fast growing ceremony amongst different tribes. It's a really intertribal, ceremony today in today's times, so we utilize that ceremony, sometimes for healing and a lot of different purposes. It's kind of a way of life, how we congregate in that ceremony. But there are elements in the ceremony, that we use. And then at a certain time in the morning time, it's all night ceremony. There's kind of I think the way I see it, the way I understand it is kind of, sometimes we have to go back and remember, the kind of emotional connections that we receive when we're in the womb. And then one of those things is, that we have certain emotions that we have, and we can tap into them, especially with like the love that we receive when we're in the womb, and it helps us kind of heal some things, experiences and traumas that we had from when we're adults or when we're children, and so you know, and then and then we can move forward, you know, in our life, you know. And so that whole ceremony is almost like a rebirthing ceremony for us. And then in the morning time, there's a time frame where we bring in the four sacred foods, you know, one of those being water, you know, and the water is represents life, you know, and it also represents, you know, the four seasons, you know, the each element, each food represents a season, you know, and that water usually represents the womb, you know, kind of, you know, and nourishes us, represents life. And then we use corn, you know, and then kind of like the corn that Sewa was, you know, talking about, you know, that blue corn. We use that blue corn in there too, and then it kind of represents, you know, the fall time, you know, or the summertime, you know, and then that also represents our another stage of life, you know. There's four stages of life, you know. We have you know, our early childhood, then we have adolescence, you know, and then we have we have the sacred meat that we use, usually deer meat, you know, and then that kind of represents our adulthood and also represents the fall time. And then lastly, we have the berries, which represent our elderly age, and then it represents the wintertime. And so those are all sacred foods, you know. They're kind of just to kind of help nourish our spirit again before we come out of that sacred ceremony time. You know, they're not really to kind of fulfill our appetite or hunger. They're there to nourish our spirit, you know, and with all those collectively, they all work together, you know, to kind of close that ceremony. And so that's just one kind of version of explanation of those sacred foods. You know, many different tribes have maybe a similar story to that, you know, with kind of maybe different teachings, you know. So that's just kind of one brief scenario or one brief explanation of how we use the sacred, you know, those sacred foods, especially the corn, you know. Share a little bit about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I thank you so much. I just thought it was really sweet for him to join me into sharing his, you know, his teachings, and, you know, that really, you know, I feel like a lot of us have very similar intentions or similar teachings and what these foods represent. You know, I just wanted to share a little bit about, you know, our family here and how we take care of it and what those foods mean to us, you know. And I also like to connect with other people and learn about their stories, because eventually I want to write a book, and you know, and I love to meet people and connect with more stories, or connect me with elders. I want to write a book about our migration stories, and that how they connect our corn migration stories, and how they connect also with our birth stories and the way that we birth and how we connect with that corn. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. This is the first time I actually say it so publicly in my prayer, my vision. So it feels good to share it in this space. Thank you.
Well, as soon as you have that up, we will definitely be promoting you and, you know, bigging you up and making sure that your book is successful. And who knows, maybe we'll give them out as giveaways. But I want to introduce Sagi, who is interested. I think they're from your hometown, possibly.
Yes. Hi, Sewa. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'm Sahi. I live in Salinas. So I noticed that you're from Salinas.
I'm from Salinas. I was born in Salinas. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was born in Mexico, but I immigrated here. I was 3 years old when I came here. So this is my hometown, and I went off to Santa Barbara for college and just recently moved back. And then, you know, my family comes from Jalisco and from Michoacan as well. So, you know, Purepecha, Huichol lands.
Hey, awesome.
Yeah. But I first, you know, just thank you for spreading this knowledge about our culture. Like, it makes me tear up just to hear it all and have it be shared. It's so important. But I love what you were saying about the corn, and I think it's really important specifically for our culture to share this kind of knowledge, because I think that, when you say Mexican, being Mexican gets sort of lost. Our
Mhm.
indigeneity gets lost, and people lose the knowledge of how our food is actually very indigenous. Like Mexican food has a lot of indigenous roots, and people don't understand that. And something as important like the cycles of harvesting corn, and people don't understand that that's the significance behind things like Dia de los Muertos, and a lot of the different traditional celebrations that we have are to do with harvesting corn and are to do with harvesting food. So I just wanted to really appreciate you and show you lots of love from your hometown.
Oh my God, thank you. My mom lives there half the year. She's there now. I didn't get to share a lot about my background, but yeah, my parents migrated to Salinas from Mexico and met there. They work in the fields. My mom still works in the strawberry fields. She's still there in Salinas picking strawberries. And my grandpa lives there. My grandpa, we all come from my background from both sides, farmers, we're all farmers. My friend here, Ariana's a farmer, I'm a farmer. Yeah, it's like really like our roots and our foundation is like, in our connection to the earth is like through like those connections through farming. And I think we've evolved into a lot of the work that we do and those connections through the farming. And I know that maybe some of our parents and some of our ancestors, that are still around, it's different now, right? Like the way like farming is now, but that's what we're really trying to do with these seeds, right? Like when you plant a seed and you grow that corn and that corn starts to show you. I had a like this, like in ceremony, I had this download because I was praying about my path and I needed clarity. I was like, okay, I want to do this, but I don't want to go into the institution. It's gonna like, I know like, you meet so many different birth workers and midwives, like going through it is like, it's rough, it kind of strips away at you, it chips away at you, and so I was just trying to find a way, like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to go through this? I'm not an academic. I have no academic background besides high school. And so I prayed about it, and there in ceremony, the fire showed me like, like grow that corn, and the corn's going to show you that you're going to have your answer. You're going to have more clarity on your path. And so I planted this corn that you see, that basket that I shared you guys earlier. And Ariana was there to help me harvest. My partner was there when we put tobacco down to ask, for those prayers. And it really unveiled itself. And so the ways, looking at the corn and seeing it, and just like the original instructions from those ants, right? Like how that it was going to help us, build that symbiosis, right, with nature. Like it helped me remember. I was like, yeah, that's right. And I got clarity, and I was like, yeah, if I could be the midwife, that even if it's just to like, it's not about like quantity, all these babies, right? I want to catch all these babies. No, it's even if it's about a birth, and if I'm not there to catch a baby, I'm just there to give them a mug of atole with those prayers. Then I feel like that's my life purpose, and it revealed my purpose. And it's really, it might seem something very simple, but it's really profound, because it's being all the ways that the food industry and all of this everything, right? It's like everything is there to distract us and help us forget who we are. And so my journey, my path was like, okay, it's clear. It's like, I'm there to help, be that bridge and help us not forget.
Yeah, and what you said right now about, being there to give that, vaso de atole, there's that saying that breastfeeding is a vehicle for ancestral wisdom. And so to nourish, a mother with corn, knowing that full well that she will nourish that baby, it is, I think, a very sacred role to be growing that corn that has had those intentions, that has had the love behind it. And I feel like that little seed of our indigeneity, it keeps like popping up through us in each generation. And I grew up here in Salinas, and we didn't have that kind of community growing up. So now I see it, flourishing here, and it makes me just like my heart burst to know that we're waking up and we're starting to go back. And my mom, like being an immigrant, it was never in her plan to go back to your roots, right? Like they're trying to move away from that. So it is for you to get there, knowing that your parents immigrated here and whatever, I feel like to know that you're going back and that you're bringing back this root is powerful, so thank you for your work.
Oh, thank you for sharing, Sagi.
Thank you, Sagi. We'd like to invite Lori to come up next.
Hi, thank you for your interesting share. Do you hear me? Yeah, okay. Thank you for your interesting share. I really appreciate it. I love the connections that I hear from you. I'm Mohawk from Ganasadaga, Quebec, and you were talking about the corn. I really connected with a lot of things that you were sharing, especially the ash that you added. We use our ashes, the hardwood ashes, and that's what does exactly what you described, breaking down the coating on the corn and really opening it up to have those nutrients accessible to us. So I was like, wow, that's really cool. I'm really enthusiastic about hearing about a lot of the different things that are, even though we're on different parts of Mother Earth, we're still doing very similar traditional cultural traditions, and it's very heartwarming for me. I really appreciate you sharing all of that, and it made me think about the richness that we have, the similarities that are so grounded in a lot of the traditions that we all carry, and I think we're more similar than we are different. So I really appreciated that. So thank you very much for that. Oh, there is just that one question about, I don't know how to say it and I don't want to be rude. That dark, that chart. Yes. What exactly is that?
It's sugar. It's just the kind of the traditional way that in Mexico they process it.
Okay.
It's like a brown sugar.
Okay.
And it has like it's a little smoky, a little bit. Different regions of Mexico make it a little bit different. My family, where I come from in Sonora, make it a certain way, and they also call it panela in Central America and South America. Panela, piloncillo, there's different names, but it's basically a brown sugar, but it's compacted, so that's why it looks like that. I don't know too much history on it, but it's kind of what we use in our what we use to sweeten like our drinks.
Okay, great.
You can find it at like most supermarkets if they have. I'm not sure in the East Coast. I know it's different to get here. You can go to like a corner like liquor store, and they'll have like a section of like Mexican stuff, but it might be a little harder out there. But if there is a Latin American food store, you could probably find it.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. And thank you everyone for the wonderful questions and comments during class today. Sewa, this was an amazing class. I was messaging Brooke in the background like, this class is awesome. So thank you so much. And thank you to your family and community for just being so generous and sharing with us tonight. It's just very fulfilling, so we appreciate you. If anyone wants to reach out to you, how would they do that?
Yeah, I put my Instagram handles on the chat here, and also Ariana's. You could find Ariana on Instagram too. I don't know. I'll put this here. This is our Instagram handles. You guys want to take a screenshot? I'm not too active on Facebook, but I do go on and I will accept a friend request. But on our Instagram, you can find our links and you can find her website on her Instagram. She's an amazing artist. She has all kinds of sorts of prints on her website. And then we're sharing about our future projects together. I share recipes also sometimes. If you go on my stories, I'm constantly sharing like recipes. We're gonna have another zine. So our intention is to have a zine for each season and to have like, you know, encourage people to cook with the seasons, and also like have all amazing artwork. So it has all the cool little visuals. Let me see if this. She did another one that's really, that's the only one that has like the grandma and stuff. But yeah, that's how you can find us. And yeah, I'm really excited. Thank you so much. It's been really beautiful to share in this space with you all. And again, thank you to Britt for connecting us. And that's really awesome. And talking to you earlier, Brooke, too. Please feel free. If there's any questions or you forgot something, reach out. I'll reply.
Okay, thank you. So I do have some housekeeping items that we need to just have with the group, which is at the end of each month, we have all of our instructors come back and we have a roundtable discussion. So if you have questions that come up that you're like, I really should have asked Sewa when I saw them on, you'll be able to ask Sewa at the end of the month. So there's that. Secondly, if you really like this programming, we are officially a 501c3. So if you would like to contribute to making First Foods happen, we now can offer a tax deductible certificate so you can write it off on your taxes. That's really good. It also allows us to grow the program. So if you have ideas for teachers, if you have ideas for the program, we are led by the folks who attend class in our community, and we really try and be responsive around the things that we provide. So that said, usually on Mondays, there is a Clubhouse talk, if you're on Clubhouse, that is hosted by Brooke usually, but sometimes it's other community members. It's in a club called the Grinding Stone, which is all, again, Indigenous programming. The Grinding Stone Collective is part of the support to make First Foods happen. So you'll see Mia sometimes on there, I'm sometimes on there, Brooke, the whole gang is over there. So yeah, please join us. It's fun. We've been doing a lot of stuff on motherhood, and usually it's corollary programming, just a little bit more interactive. Maybe you want to meet the community members that are part of First Foods a little more one-on-one. It's a pretty amazing, really dynamic community of super smart Native people who like care about the future of our nations, right? So if that's you, please join us. It's very fun. Otherwise, we hope you have a good week. We'll see you next week, and we will continue on our motherhood month for First Foods. Catching on the next one. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Aloha.